Dan Schwartz, aka Danny Nerdnick. This is Danny Nerdnick Live, a very special episode today. I didn't actually want to have to do this. Today's Tuesday, October 6th, 2020, the year that will never end. And here we are. All right, well, how's it going, everybody? Hi, Danny Nerdnick here. Bad haircut and all. Had to do it myself. I was getting a little bit tired of having, big ol' Jufro happening. Okay, so by now, I'm sure that you, my fair viewer, news junkies as you are, I'm sure you are absolutely aware of what is currently happening regarding our president, Donald John Trump. As of Friday, early in the morning, he said he was diagnosed. He and the First Lady were diagnosed with COVID-19 after Hope Hicks, one of Donald Trump's closest advisors, had tested positive for COVID-19. Trump and Melania immediately then went to quarantine. Later that day, Friday, Trump was moved to Walter Reed, the military medical facility. We got many conflicting statements about Donald Trump's health, and we still cannot get a 100% truthful answer out of the White House physicians or the physicians at Walter Reed who helped Trump, who were working on Trump's case. That alone is incredibly shocking and disturbing. We, the American people, have a right to know whether or not the president has COVID pneumonia. We have a right to know when his last negative test was and when his first positive test was. He is a public servant. He works for us. We, the people of the United States of America. Granted, he was voted in by a minority of people, and the majority of people voted by 3 million votes for Hillary Clinton? And yet we're stuck with Donald Trump and his obfuscation. Clearly, the doctors at Walter Reed were deferring and kowtowing to the President of the United States and not telling us the truth. The White House itself has become a hotbed. It has become a hot zone. It is now the site of an outbreak that continues to grow. Now, do you remember a few weeks ago when Donald Trump said he didn't really care about the army, about the troops? He called people who joined the army, the military, suckers and losers? I do. Now, I can tell you that this man is callous. I can tell you that this man is thoughtless. I can assure you that this man, all you need to know about him, he said when he came down that escalator in 2015, he is a heartless, racist, bigoted human being who has only gotten worse over these 3.5, almost 4 years as president. We have watched this man's mental decline. We have seen him abscond to Walter Reed in the middle of the night for unknown tests, some kind of event. What happened? We still don't know what happened that night. He flitted off to Walter Reed in the middle of the night. He said it was the second half of a physical, but why would you do that in the middle of the night? And then why would you project by saying people are saying that he had several mini strokes? Why would you put that out there? And then when you go to West Point, and forgive me, Mr. President, that's not hard. Yet you, sir, had to help yourself with your offhand to lift a glass of water to your lips. And then, after that speech at West Point, you claimed that the ramp was slippery and you nearly wiped out on the way down. But, Mr. President, there's clearly something wrong with you. You need to admit it. The reporting this morning was from Mary Trump, who said that the Trump family looked at illness as an unforgivable weakness, which gives us even more insight into the president and why he acts this way. Now, I also would like to point out one other thing. The book, Too Much and Never Enough, by Trump's niece, Mary Trump, who is a psychologist, it tells you even more than before. Now we know the truth of the man. We know what makes up his soul from his very family. So, with all of that in mind, the callousness, the disregard for other people's health, the frankly shocking tweet that said, "Don't be afraid of COVID." My friends, it's a deadly virus. There are 210 plus thousand Americans less than when there were at the beginning of the year. Certainly, if this administration couldn't have stopped the pandemic from coming to our shores, then they should have done something as soon as it got here to try to stem the tide, the onslaught that was coming. And yet, Donald Trump and his administration decided the best course of action would be to throw out the tried and tested and good playbook that President Obama and future President Joe Biden left for just such an occasion. Ebola didn't become a pandemic. Swine flu didn't become a pandemic because we had rational, reasonable people in charge who understood the gravity of the situation that they found themselves in and worked together with their intelligence sources using best practices and showing by example, leading by example. They made sure that those diseases did not become pandemics. So, that brings us back to Donald John Trump. When was his last negative test? According to his doctor, who may or may not have misspoken, he was lying. That was a lie. Donald Trump was positive at the debate with Joe Biden. Now, if a normal person, say me, had COVID-19 and walked up to the Democratic nominee or the current president of the United States, knowing that I was positive with COVID-19, shook his hand and breathed in his face, that would be an assassination attempt. Am I saying that Donald Trump knowingly attempted to infect Joe Biden? I don't know. It would be in line with Donald Trump's business practices. It would be in line with Donald Trump's predatory nature. Certainly. But he's the president of the United States, and I have to believe better of him. That the leader of the free world wouldn't knowingly attempt to infect the man that he got impeached trying to discredit. Conspiracy theory. That's all it is. That's all we know, at least at this point. Other than the fact that Donald Trump has been given medicine in concert, 3 different types of medicines. Remdesivir, dexamethasone, and this, the infusion of antibodies. Now, I've been on steroids. I'm actually on steroids every day for my asthma. I've been on steroids for skin stuff because I have psoriasis and I have very sensitive skin. I can tell you, I become a little bit more aggressive when I take prednisone. When I take any of the steroids that they've given me, even the topical ones, I feel like $1 million. Now, if you're given the strongest steroid that they have that they can issue for someone whose immune system is overacting, my Twitter feed would probably look like his too. Now let's talk about that drive-by. Donald Trump left Walter Reed Hospital to do a lap in his hermetically sealed SUV with 2 Secret Service men in that vehicle. Hermetically sealed means air doesn't go in, air doesn't go out, except for the air conditioning, obviously. But Donald Trump put his Secret Service agents, men tasked with protecting his life, in a situation where the virus, masks or no masks, was flying around like a pinball on a pinball table. I ask you this. If you were President of the United States of America, would you willingly expose the people who protect you, who are sworn to take a bullet for you, to a potentially deadly disease? It's not ethical. It's not moral. It's not right. You treat those guys well. Jack Kennedy, JFK, not a perfect man by any stretch of the imagination. And he too did keep a lot of his medical conditions, Addison's disease for one, and the fact he had an open gaping wound in his back from World War II for two. He didn't really brag about those. In fact, he was probably a sex addict and terribly depressed, and a big old drug addict. Big old drug addict. Granted, he was in constant pain. So, I mean, there's a trade-off here. He didn't shout about it, but the American people knew. Jack Kennedy, JFK, one winter was in the Oval Office working late, and he invited his Secret Service guard, who was outside on the portico, in for a cup of coffee. The Secret Service guard said, "No, Mr. President, I can't. I have to stay out here and protect you." So what did Jack Kennedy do? He poured 2 cups, I guess it was hot chocolate. He poured 2 cups of hot chocolate, went outside, handed one to his Secret Service guard, and they just shot the shit like 2 dudes. Because Jack Kennedy, aside from all of his faults, was a decent human being. There's nothing I've seen personally in Donald Trump's past that makes me think he is a man worthy of respect from another human being as a human being. He lies about his religion and then goes on to badmouth fundamentalists and people who really have strong convictions in their faith. I myself am an atheist. I think religion is silly. And we can talk about it. Just shoot me a message on Twitter. We'll talk about it. We'll hash that out. I'm a strong atheist. I do not believe there is a God. Period. But I don't, unless the people who I'm talking to refuse to show willingness to listen. I will not call them stupid. I won't call them suckers unless they're so fundamentalist and wrapped up in their religious belief that they can't see any form of logic, in which case I might gently mock them towards maybe finding a rational position. Doesn't work all the time, most of the time, but the people you can talk to who listen, they're worth it. Every mind is worth it if they can show critical thinking, logic, and reason. So I bring this back to Donald Trump and his callous disregard for the people around him. His callous disregard for the state of national security in these United States. And that is why I've decided to to record this video today. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Per the New York Times, earlier today, Top military leaders, including chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are quarantining after being exposed to the virus. Now, did Trump expose them? Was it him directly? Who knows? But it was Trump's lack of care. It was Trump not listening to the experts that jeopardized our top military command. Think about this for just a second. Top military leaders, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Man, are you actually kidding me? So, General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, along with several of the Pentagon's most senior uniformed leaders, are quarantining after being exposed to the coronavirus, a Defense Department official said on Tuesday. The official said almost the entirety of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, including General James C. McConville, the Army Chief of Staff, are quarantining after Admiral Charles Ray, the Vice Commandant of the Coast Guard, tested positive for coronavirus. We are aware that Vice Commandant Ray has tested positive for COVID-19 and that he was at the Pentagon last week for meetings with other senior military leaders, Jonathan Hoffman, the Pentagon spokesman, said in a statement released by his office. Out of an abundance of caution, all potential close contacts from these meetings are self-quarantining and have been tested this morning, he added. No Pentagon contacts have exhibited symptoms, and we have no additional positive tests to report at this time. The announcement represents an alarming development, as the virus extends its reach from the highest levels of civilian government to the operational heart of the country's national security apparatus. Admiral Ray was in the Pentagon last week, attending meetings in the secure, quote, tank with General Milley and the senior Pentagon uniformed leadership. Defense Department officials said the decision to quarantine complied with Defense Department guidelines established by the Centers for Disease Control. General Milley and a number of senior Defense Department officials have also been getting tested frequently since last Sunday, when many of the Pentagon's senior leadership attended a White House reception for Gold Star families of fallen troops. Both Mr. Trump and Melania Trump, the First Lady, were at that event. The reaction at the Pentagon to the possible exposure of senior military leaders to coronavirus stands in contrast to the White House, where Mr. Trump has flouted the same guidelines established by the CDC that the Pentagon is following. White House officials, citing national security concerns last weekend, told Defense Department officials that they should no longer inform the public or the press about the coronavirus status of senior Pentagon leaders. But Defense Department officials have questioned the directive. General Milley, 62, was appointed to his post as the most senior member of the military on December 8, 2018 by Mr. Trump. He was present in Lafayette Square on June 1st when law enforcement officers tear-gassed peaceful demonstrators protesting police violence. Helena Cooper. I just want to make sure of one thing. Okay, General Milley and a number of senior Defense Department officials have also been getting tested frequently since last Sunday, when many of the Pentagon's senior leadership attended a White House reception for Gold Star families of fallen troops. Both Mr. Trump and Melania Trump, the First Lady, were at that event. So now, we have Admiral Ray, who seems to be the vector in the Pentagon. Admiral Ray probably got it from Trump, who looks like he's the superspreader. Because we don't know when Trump last tested positive. Well, we don't know when Trump first tested positive and last tested negative. We don't know these things. Now the senior-most members of our armed forces are quarantined. Donald Trump is a huge threat to American national security. Now, I'm not a conspiracy person. I used to be. I loved listening to Coast AM. Like, Last Podcast on the Left is probably my favorite podcast. Well, shout out for LPN. If you guys need like a cooking show, please, Papa Zabrowski, please. So I'm not a conspiracy person, but we've seen now numerous contacts between Russia and the United States, specifically this administration. If Vladimir Putin wanted to cause chaos through the coronavirus, I'd say he got more than he bargained for with this one. Now, obviously, I don't want any of these people to suffer or die. Very clearly, I'm a staunch opponent of the death penalty. I don't believe that any human has the right to take another human's life. And I hope that President Trump at least gets well enough to get shellacked in the general election, to see himself be completely embarrassed by Joe Biden, a man he got himself impeached over to discredit. I do not want Donald Trump to die. I do want Donald Trump to experience the worst that COVID has. 210,000 plus Americans are dead. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are quarantining. The President and First Lady quarantining, positive with coronavirus. Chairperson of the RNC, positive for coronavirus. Trump's advisors, press secretary, 3 GOP senators, positive for coronavirus. Bill Barr, now quarantining, likely hiding his positive coronavirus diagnosis. Mike Pence and the Second Lady seem to be okay. They continue to test negative. Which test are they using? And finally, Mr. President, go back to Walter Reed. Lock yourself in. Stay there. Get better. Quit fucking around. You are the President of the United States. Your responsibility is greater to the programming that your family gave you growing up. Your responsibility is to the citizens of the United States. Stop fucking around. National mask mandate. Now. COVID relief. Now. Testing. Now. Healthcare. Now. Mr. President, you are COVID positive. You are part of the 7 million plus people who are suffering with coronavirus, and we do not know what the full long-term effects are, Mr. President. You are part of that club now. Here's the difference, though. Most of those 7 million people don't have doctors on call, don't have a helicopter out back to take them to one of the finest medical facilities in the country. Mr. President, most of the 7 million plus people who got COVID don't have socialized health care like you do. Mr. President, you have a responsibility. And we, the people, have a right. You could have been hailed as a hero. If you hadn't fucked this up so badly, even the staunchest Democrats, the furthest left people would say, well, yeah, he wasn't a great president, but at least he didn't fuck up COVID. Now, Mr. President, you go down in history as the president who said that there were fine people on both sides. One side had people marching in swastikas, KKK hoods, shouting, "Jews will not replace us." One of those sides ran over Heather Heyer, friend of my friend, by the way, Mr. President. On the debate stage, Mr. President, you refused to condemn white supremacists. You sent a message to a group that you later denied knowing. Now, I know for a fact that you know who Richard Spencer is. I know for a fact you know who Gavin McInnes is. I know for a fact you know who the Proud Boys are. Mr. President, you will now go down in history as a white supremacist, bigoted, xenophobic, virus-denying, troop-hating hypocrite who let our country die. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not registered to vote, vote. If you have your ballot, fill it out and return it fast as you can. We are in bad shape. I'm not just talking about myself. The United States is in real trouble. If you're a patriotic American, if you believe that democracy, the principles that the Founding Fathers laid down so many years ago, if you believe that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, then you will vote for Joe Biden, because the country will not survive 4 more years of Donald Trump. My name is Danny Nerdnick, aka Daniel Schwartz. Thank you for watching.